Good morning. We just got done reading Luke 23, and we went ahead and finished the book of Luke. But I want to talk about the trial and the crucifixion of Jesus. And this is where we're at. I wanted to look at specifically two people from these passages. The first is Pilate. He's the Roman, I don't know if it's judge, but he's the one that oversaw the trial of Jesus. And then the other is the thief on the cross. But let's start with Pilate. So I've always looked at Pilate as like a really, like a good guy in this story, because what's happening in the trial is that Jesus was brought to him, and he basically was like, I don't see any reason that this man needs to be sentenced to death. Basically, after I've seen his actions, we're going to flog him and then send him on his way. And there was a big crowd there, and they said, no, we want to kill him. He needs to die. And that was led by all of the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the time that wanted to see Jesus brought to death. And so Pilate said, okay, I'll tell you what, let me send him over to Herod, who at the time was the king of the Jews. And Herod basically came to the same conclusion. He was like, yeah, I was really worried about him. I slaughtered untold numbers of baby boys because I was worried about Jesus. But, I think he's fine. So he sends him back to Pilate. And Pilate again says, I don't see any reason to put this man to death. So he was going to flog him and send him on his way. But again, the crowd started stirring and wanted to see Jesus brought to death. So basically, Pilate gave in. And so what does that mean? I mean, Pilate was trying to stand his ground. He's trying to do his job. And it doesn't really tell us if Pilate found Jesus to be the Messiah, or if he had faith that he was who he said he was. From what I am gleaning from reading, I don't believe he did, and I don't think that Jesus addresses this anywhere. But what I get out of this part of the Bible is that even though Pilate was being moral in his decisions, that doesn't mean that he was a follower of Jesus. That doesn't mean that he is invited the kingdom of heaven into his heart, and because of that, I don't know that he will be invited into the kingdom of heaven. So, Jesus commands us to carry our cross, and he says that, hey, when you follow me, life is going to be hard. You're going to have to go through struggles. If you deny me, then I will deny you. And so even though Pilate knew that Jesus was righteous in his actions, he did nothing to deserve the death penalty, he didn't stand firm in what he knew was right. So looking at Pilate, again, I've always looked at him as a good guy, but he did fall short. And I just look at my own life and think, man, where have I stood up for what I knew was morally right? And maybe even got pushed back on a few times, but eventually just gave in because it was easier. It was easier to appease, whether it's the group I was with, or a group of friends going out, and we all decided to go somewhere. I'm like, we really shouldn't be doing this stuff, but eventually gave in. Or even with my own kids, like the way I raise them, like if I tell them that they can or cannot do something, and they push back, and I'm just like, I'm so tired. I'm just gonna give in. It's just we're not gonna be perfect all the time. But I just take what the story of Pilate and Jesus' trial and say, how can I look at that in my own life, and how can I do a better job so that I can be a better follower of Jesus? Because when we do that, we bring the kingdom of heaven down to us, and we'll live better lives. So that's my thoughts on the trial, and specifically Pilate. As far as the crucifixion, there's so much to unpack here. I mean, I could probably make like 20 videos on this, but there was something that hit me reading this morning. I mean, I've heard this story 1,000 times, and it's always been said that the thief on the cross, that he didn't know Jesus. He didn't accept him into his heart until the moment before they died. And Jesus says, I assure you today, you will be with me in paradise. He says that to the thief on the cross as they're talking right before their deaths. And so, I think it's pretty well accepted that the thief is in heaven right now. And I truly believe that. Something it doesn't address, though, is whether or not that this man that died next to Jesus knew him before that moment. And I guess maybe I need to do some more reading, but I don't believe that he's addressed anywhere else in the Bible. And maybe I could do a word study to see if there's anything else that addresses this specifically. But from what I'm reading, it doesn't say whether or not he knew or had faith in Jesus prior to this moment. And it's just always been taught to me that he didn't know Jesus until this moment, and that he accepted him into his heart as they were dying, and that was enough. Which, from everything else I've read in the Bible, that would be enough. That Jesus says, I am the truth and the way. I am the only way to get to God. All you have to do is have faith in me. Everything else you do, it's not like it doesn't matter, but as long as you have faith in Jesus and you truly repent for what you've done, that you'll be accepted into the kingdom of heaven. So I'm not saying that you have to know Jesus for a long time to be brought into heaven, but I just think it's interesting that I've always been taught that the thief never knew him until this moment, and I don't know if that's necessarily the case. So I don't know. That's just something to think about. I don't really have any, I guess, theological thoughts or theories on that, other than just we don't know what we don't know, which is interesting. So that's all for now. This continues on with the resurrection, what happened post-crucifixion with his disciples, and how he was witnessed to be alive, and there's stuff to unpack there too. But I think after today, I'm going to jump around. Something I've never read or really even learned much about is the end times, which I think could be pretty interesting. So I'm going to read Revelation next. I think it's going to get super weird, and I don't know much about it, so I'm going to have to really think through that book to see what God's trying to teach me through that book. So I'm interested to share my thoughts with that on here with you guys, and I'm really going to lean on you to maybe help educate me on what I say, because like I said, I have almost no background on Revelations. But that's all for this morning. Also, I'm wearing my Reagan t-shirt. It says, I don't know if you can see here. It says, I smell hippies. And a little side story. The funny thing about that is I'm totally turning into a hippie. I'll make some videos about, and I've got the high flavanol hot chocolate stuff I talked about before. That's part of that. I'm leaning into so many more natural remedies and things to, maintain and heal our bodies. So I just think it's funny that I'm wearing that shirt. There you go. All right. That's all, guys. I will see you soon.